And now, ladies and gentlemen, Skywalker.
Thank you, Jim Davis, and thank you for tuning in to Radio Memories here on 1215-21. And I am so proud to welcome our first sponsor to Radio Memories, Audio Girl Productions, the best in the business. I have done business with them for so long, and they do exactly what you want. I am so glad that they have decided to sponsor this show, and I appreciate them. So they are the best in the business, devastatingly effective voiceover, music and recording for television, radio, podcasting, and all multimedia. They are the best, and I thank them for sponsoring Radio Memories. Check them out at audiogirlproductions.com. And we have such a great show for you today. One of my favorite people in the whole wide world, Diana Steele. I first met her in 1991 when I left KISS FM, and I did it hesitantly. I was offered nights at KKBT, The Beat, by Liz Kiley, and she made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And one of the first people that I had met at the Beat was Diana Steele. And we just connected. We laughed, we joked, we became instantaneous friends, still friends to this day. She was just a beautiful soul. And I am so glad that she's here to share her radio memories. And joining us from her beautiful home in Phoenix, Arizona, my longtime friend and superstar, Diana Steele. Diana, it is so good to see you.
You too. You too. It's funny because when you meet people over the years in radio, and we met in the early 90s, and when you meet people over the years, there's certain words that'll come up in your life, or a song, or something will happen. And currently, in my current job, I switched careers. I still dabble in the VO, but I was just quoting I was looking at somebody's property, and it was Kitty Hawk. And I went, Kitty, Miss Kitty, Skywalker. It's just so funny how things connect, right, in our brains, and how, I mean, I'm happy we've been able to keep in touch as much as we have over the years, right? But yeah, we had some interesting times, and that was when the Beat was, so the Beat came on in '89, and it was FM 92 Rock with the Beat, right? And then they decided 6 months in, this isn't working. We can't play Take a Walk on the Wild Side, followed by Janet Jackson, whatever it was we were playing at the time from her. But I'm like, it's like,
well, remember the morning guy was Paul Rodriguez, the comedian?
Yeah.
And he would essentially be sleeping in the hallway.
Yeah.
You would have to, he wouldn't even show up. He wouldn't even make it on the air. You would actually have to step over him.
Yes. Yeah. Those were the days, right?
Yeah.
And the thing was, that building on Yucca Street was already like haunted and trippy and weird, because it used to be the Villa Capri restaurant back in the day.
Owned by Frank Sinatra.
Yes. And Graveline Tours would come around, and I'd see this hearse pull up every Tuesday at 10:30. And I'm like, what in God's name are you coming here for? And so I went out one day, and I like waved him down, and he's got these people in this hearse, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he said, oh, didn't you know this was the last place that James Dean had his last meal before he drove off and died? And I'm like, whoa, that's creepy. So now I know what all the weird sounds are when I'm here late at night. It's creepy. So that place just had already an interesting aura about it. And it was right on Yucca and Highland.
Right. Just right off of Highland, you turned left, and right on Yucca, it was just right there. And in an interesting place. We were almost camouflaged.
Yes, there were like the apartments next door, and then we called it Crack Alley because they would hide their crack cocaine in the trees outside of the office. And our management is like our GM and everybody. Their offices are right there on the street, and they'd see people coming up like shaking the trees, and so it was a really trippy place, but it was so much fun, and it was.
And right down the street, they had filmed. Was it Pretty
Woman with Julia Roberts?
Yes, that's it. Pretty Woman. Yeah.
And Richard Gere, and that scene where he comes up in the limo and he's got the roses, and she's up there.
Yes,
that was La Palma, which I don't know if you remember, but La Palma had a really good restaurant we would go hang out and drink at.
Yes.
Yeah. And then Musso and Frank's was right there on Hollywood Boulevard. So it was just this really nostalgic, trippy area, and so much happened while we were there. And a lot of people didn't realize that was where the radio station was. So we'd be interviewing people. Luther Vandross did a complete concert in the parking lot of that place.
Yeah.
So, I mean, talk about, whoa, here we are in the early 90s, and we've got Luther up there performing in the parking lot. And I mean, people hanging out of their apartment windows like, what the?
I know.
This is a trip.
I know. Do you remember when we had Barry White come in? And our operations manager, Liz Kiley, said, Sky, take Barry White in the production room and have him cut IDs.
Oh my God.
And I don't know, it took me about 3, 4, 5 hours. And Barry, with his big voice, I couldn't get him to say the beat.
Oh,
such
no.
a difficult, it was like, we had such a great time there. I want to tell one quick story about us, and then I want to get into your history and where you and how you began in this business, this crazy business, because you've accomplished so much. One funny story when we were there, VH1 was looking for VJs, video disc jockeys, just like MTV had. And you asked me to videotape you. I had a video camera, and so I go to your place, and
I remember none of this, so you're bringing it all back.
And it's so funny because I think we do more laughing than anything else.
Yeah.
But it was one of the funniest, and I still have that videotape.
Oh God, you have to send me a copy.
Oh God, it's hilarious. Good. Because you're trying to be serious. We've got everything set up, and it's the old video cameras where you would put in the actual VHS tape, and so I'm videotaping you, and you're trying to be serious, introducing whatever song, and here's Men at Work. And then you start cracking up. And as we went along, I think we did about an hour and a half. Maybe it's longer. But it turned into a laughing fest. And it's the funniest thing to watch.
That's awesome. That's so awesome.
And,
I had these like aspirations of going into that.
And I had given you a copy of that tape because I said, I think I edited, all the parts where you could send it as an audition tape.
I'm sure I did. I remember them telling me I'd have to move to New York. And at that time, New York was just nowhere I wanted to be. I grew up in Chicago, right? Cold weather doesn't thrill me at all. Thus, Arizona. But I think for me, it was more of a, I think I might have been married at the time. I can't remember. Do you know?
Were.
I was. Okay.
Yes,
see, you would remember that. I would not. So, and I think that played into it too. Then they started talking about, different things in LA and whatever, but I think I just became so ingrained in radio that I never ventured into that world of television.
Let's start out now with the beginning
Okay.
of your career. Where does it begin with Diana Steele?
So I fell in love with music as a little kid watching Soul Train, right? I'm 5 years old. I'm on the coffee table, getting my little thing on, trying to do my own Soul Train line. And my mother had a seizure. I fell in love with Michael Jackson at that time, ABC 1, 2, 3. And I just really got a vibe for the music growing up in Chicago. WLS was a station I listened to like fanatically. And I loved all kinds of music because of WLS, right? You remember the station was the top 40 blasted across the country. So I really got into music in that level. Then when I got into middle school, well, what do you want to do? Well, I wanted to be a news anchor. So I went into one of these career days and there was a guy that came in, and the only close thing was a sportscaster from Chicago that was in and was going to talk about stuff. And so I was the only girl in there, and the guys are like, girls can't do this. Girls can't be sports reporters, and I was like, well, I just want to be a news reporter. So I thought I'd just hear what he had to say. And then I thought, I love radio. And I walked into the Hancock building when I was 17, and I knew I was going away to college, thought I was going to be an attorney, knew I'm going away to college, walked into the Hancock building, taking some families around, and I see a guy sitting there typing on a Saturday, and it says Channel 5 News Traffic. And I'm like, oh, TV. I'll go in and see if they do internships. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm 17. So I walked in, and this guy sitting there happened to own the company. And he's like, oh, we used to be owned by Channel 5. Now we're our own thing. I own the company, and we provide traffic reports for Chicago radio stations. And I'm like, how cool is that? From up here on the, observatory floor in the Hancock building. It was the 96. And
wow.
And he said, yeah, we use our binoculars and we use these little road. And he showed me the whole thing. And he's like, you go to college, get me a tape of yourself. I want to hear you, send it to me, stay in touch, and I'll give you an internship next summer. So I was like, okay, go to college, walk in the door. Hey, I need to get on the air. I go to the college, radio station. They're like, yeah, no. And the guy's name was Rick Kempfer. And we're still connected on Facebook to this day. Rick's written some books, really cool dude. And he's like, yeah, you got to take 2 years of your basics. Then once you're in journalism school, then you get on a waiting list. I'm like, no, I can't do that. I have an offer to do this internship in Chicago. He's like, wow, you can be on the cable station, but there's nothing open. But if something opens, I'll call you. So what paid off for me was persistence. I bothered this poor dude every week. Got anything? Anybody kick off? What are we doing? So I'm 18. And he says to me, I've got 4 to 6 a.m. on Sunday mornings. Well, this is my freshman year in college. I lived for the moment to get out of my home and to be on my own and party like a rock star. That's prime time right there. 4 to 6 a.m. at 18. So I was like, you know what? I got to make sacrifice. So I took the gig and I learned how to, put a record on the turntable. I learned how to speak on a microphone. I learned how to read a card. I mean, these things that I just kind of had the person before me goes, yeah, just put it on the turntable, put it on, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. Mm-hmm. And from that, I, really dug playing music and being able to have that creativity, which in radio you no longer have. That is dead. And gone.
There's not even radio anymore, but yeah,
right.
it left long ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what got me into it. And so I got into radio. I worked at a club. The guy who was hiring for people to work at the club is a DJ. Also happened to manage the radio station in Champaign. He and I are still friends to this day, Mike Hale. And he gave me the opportunity to get on the air and do radio. So I was able to do that through college. It helped pay my way through college. And then when everybody else was going on interviews and, putting on suits and trying to get jobs, I was like, I'll figure it out. So I knew I was getting married. I knew I was going to be moving to California. I sent out a bunch of air check tapes. Remember our little cassette tapes?
Yeah.
I sent those out to San Francisco because that's where we're moving to. And I got a call from K101. I've been in Northern California about a month, got a phone call. I just accepted a job at a station that was just for Marin County called KTIM. And so I was doing weekends for them. And I got a call to go to the station called K101. And I'm like, ooh, I got to go over the Golden Gate Bridge. This is some big stuff.
Yeah.
So I was 21 and, made the trip in and got the job. And, from there, the stories ran. So that was, the mid 80s. And I was on major market radio. And, normally women were generally kept to the evenings, right? Because men felt like.
Or overnights.
Or news girl.
Or news girl.
Yeah. So for me, I was on at night, and which was okay. But I kept wondering as I went through this process, and then I left K101 after about a year and a half, and I got a call from Keith Naftali, who said, hey, I've had your tape for about a year and a half, and we want to talk to you. And I was like, oh my God. Like this was 1988, I think, or something like that. And here we are at a hip hop station, the first one in San Francisco. And I was so excited because it was the station I listened to. So I was like, yeah, and I walk in and he goes, the only thing is I don't like your name. So I want you to listen to this and tell me what you think. So you, of course.
And what name were you using?
Well, my real name, which I'm not going to say, but my real name, he just thought it was rather boring.
Okay.
So it was, but I didn't know any better at 21.
Yeah.
The name you use, the name on the radio. So he says, just listen to this. And he puts this, what looks like, remember how our commercials were on carts?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So he sticks that in a machine in his office, 106 KMEL, Diana Steele. And he goes, what do you think of that? And I go, wow, that sounds cool. Who is that? And he goes, if you take the job, it's you. And I go, oh.
Wow.
And he goes,
okay.
you don't want to use your real name.
I'm good to go.
So that's where the name started. And then I was asked to come, probably within about a year and a half, I was called in the middle of the night by Liz Kiley, who said, hey, we're starting a radio station in LA. It's called, it's KKBT, but it's FM 92 rock with a beat. And I was like, oh, cool. Well, what do you want me to do? She's like, middays. And I'm like, oh my God, I get to work during the day, and go to LA. So of course I'm married at the time. My husband's like, yeah, I'll transfer. He worked for Chevron Oil. So he was right down there. We moved to Manhattan Beach and we kicked off FM 92 rock with a beat, which was Paul Rodriguez in the morning, Tim Kelly, Power Mouth Patty. It just was a really cool team.
Big Ron O'Brien in the afternoon.
Yes. Ron was afternoons. I was middays. At night, there was a girl named Ferrari that was on the air.
Oh, that's right. Ferrari. Yes.
Annie Pacheco was there. And so we just had a really cool team of people. And basically they were trying to do the Rainbow Coalition for LA. We're going to put a variety of people on, all different ethnicities. We're going to put all different kinds of music on, and it's going to be a hit. And about 6 months in, that's when they changed it, and they decided to go urban, or what is now, kind of a mix of R&B and hip hop.
Well, it was more of a churban in the beginning.
Right.
It wasn't really so much urban as it was more of a churban. Remember, we were playing Vanilla Ice, Ice Baby. Right. And then we played a song by Donny Osmond that we didn't identify as Donny Osmond.
Yes, what was that?
I don't remember, but.
And I mean, it was just the craziest of things. Yeah. And I remember interviewing him. I mean, you're right. We were all over the map, and then it kind of moved into more of an urban direction.
Yes.
Which is when it became, I think it was just the beat, right?
Yeah.
92.3, the beat.
Yeah.
And at that time, when I knew that we were going like full on urban, they pretty much let the whole staff go. And I was like the last person standing. And I was like, whew. But then I looked around and I'm like, I'm the only white person here now, which was really trippy.
It was.
Right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't trippy for me.
Well, you could see it start to transition. You could really see it begin to transition as time went on. Yeah.
Which I got because, you want people playing your music that are familiar with the format. So I get it from that aspect, 100%. I think what's kind of bothered me since then is that I've seen where that has gone out the window and other things have come into play in terms of who gets the gig, right? Whether it's your age, your race, and that those things should not play at all. It should be who sounds good on the air and who knows the format. And that kind of dwindled away. But in this instance, it was appropriate because I came from a hip hop background, KMEL in San Francisco. So if we're going in that direction, for me, I was excited because I was, that was in my age group at that time.
You were already familiar with that format.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, cool. I'm excited we're going this way because we were playing some stuff. I wasn't even born yet when we first were on the air doing Rock with a Beat. So moving into that direction, certainly gave the station a different energy. And, we went through different owners too. Remember, it went from AM FM or Evergreen, AM FM.
It started, with Scott Ginsburg's station, Evergreen, and then Jimmy's station, AM FM.
AM FM, yep.
And then there was the hostile takeover from Clear Channel. Which was very disappointing. Because I was working for Jimmy at that point and doing mornings in Sacramento, and the memo that Jimmy had sent out the day that hostile takeover took place, that was really sad because I love Jimmy DeCastro. He's always been good to me.
Me too. He's it's funny. I talked to him probably a month ago, and I said, I emulate a lot of what I saw you do with the staff. He would come in the door and he would say hello to everyone from the receptionist, Marilyn, good, all the way down the hall, to the engineer in the back, Terry Grieger. It was such a wonderful thing to observe because that energy he gave people was so, like, I'd watch it and I'd be like, wow, you just walk up to people. And it means so much to them that here's the head guy.
Yeah.
He knows I'm here.
Yes.
And
yes.
And he's nice to me. And he actually, asks me about, my kid or, it's just interesting how he made people feel like they just weren't an employee. They were part of a family.
Oh yeah. And he made you feel like you mattered.
Yeah. And really I think it's so difficult to manage so many different personalities, especially in a radio station where you've got all these people, and in LA, for God's sake, where all these people want to get to the top and they all want to be this and they all want to be that. And, I don't know how he did it, to be honest, but
he was such a great people person.
Yeah.
And in the first year, and I was invited to his home for Thanksgiving, and I just was taken aback. I never thought, that I would be invited to his home, his personal home with his family.
I know.
To celebrate Thanksgiving.
Like, hey, welcome.
But that's the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
And just a jewel, just a wonderful human being. I'm, and he's just a nice guy.
Mm-hmm. And when you're lucky when you can come across people like that in your work life, right? Because other places that I've been, it was more like, I almost felt like I relate it sometimes to the NFL or college football, where, when they want you in the beginning, they're like, wow, we're so happy to have you. You're going to have all these things. It's going to be great. And then you get in the door and it's kind of like, hey, you said, hey, and that's kind of where radio became, where you were just, sit here, play the music. You have 7 seconds. I remember towards the end of my time at Hot 92 Jams.
And that was owned by Clear Channel at that point, right? Yeah.
Your breaks have to be 6 seconds. I think it was iHeart by that time. I'm not sure.
Yes. And they had implemented that 7-second rule.
Say what you gotta say in 7 seconds. I was like,
because I was voice tracking for them in Burbank for Kiss FM in Louisville. I was doing 7 to midnight, and I was doing 7 to midnight at WMAX, the Max, all 80s in Atlanta.
Good Lord.
But we had that 7-second rule, which was horrible when you're playing your favorite 80s songs. You know, I loved, you know, I grew up, you know, those are my songs. But I only had 7 seconds, you know, so it's like,
I kind of knew, though, at that point that the radio that I loved and the radio that I did, unless I was doing morning radio or kind of 50% afternoons were allowed that creativity, it just wasn't there for me anymore. And so I was doing middays for about 10 years at the Beat. And then, you know, I was kind of like, I just want to do mornings. Like, when can I do mornings? Why can't, you know, I'm like, this isn't right. I want to do something different. So there was a morning show. They were looking for a co-host in San Francisco, which is where I'd come from, right? So I knew the guy. It was Rick Chase. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
And they needed a co-host for Rick. And I was like, well, I'll do that. You know, so went up there, did that. And he wound up leaving, and we formed our own show called the Zoo Crew in San Francisco. I had so much fun with Joey Arbeiger. Talk about a great boss. Joey Arbeiger, no, he's off in the music world, just like Keith Naftali. And he was just such an incredible boss. And our show went to #1. You know, everything was #1. And then they sent out a memo saying, oh, by the way, we're getting rid of your PD. We're moving in this guy, Michael Martin, who was such an asshole. I don't know what he's like today, but I can tell you.
You know what? I happen to like Mike, and I know him from my days at Kiss FM.
Yep.
And
I can only tell you, he didn't understand radio to the point that I know that when Rick was on, and Rick could be very volatile, like holy crap, volatile, like whoa, dude. And he went for Mike, but Michael Martin took it out on the whole station at KMEL. And that I thought was unfair. So when they pulled Joey out and they put Michael Martin in charge of Wild and KMEL, which were battling stations, now we all have to play nice in the sandbox. I knew the minute they did that Michael Martin was going to fire everyone that was on the air at KMEL and bring in everybody he liked. And he subsequently did that. I mean, my contract was up. It just wasn't renewed. But thankfully, he left me a message while I was on vacation at Christmas and told me I was terminated. So they had to pay me quite a bit of money, which worked out for me. So I should be nicer about him, I guess.
Wow,
but I just
he did that over Christmas?
So, you know, I kind of felt like, and on a voice message, I kind of felt like, and that part didn't bother me. It was more of how he really took it personally, that this radio stuff that was said and done by somebody else, he blamed the whole station for. He hated KMEL. And so when all these people are trying to be nice to him, and I said, he's just going to let everybody go. I mean, I can tell you guys, you're all going to be out of here at the end of the year. And that's what happened. And Chuy Gomez, I think, was the only one that was able to stay, that he liked. But I know that people give their heart and soul to radio. People give their freaking heart and soul to radio. And I don't know if the listeners understand that, but they really do. I mean, they put their personalities on the air to be loved, hated, you name it. And it's for somebody to just sort of take that and throw it out like it's nothing. It personally offended me. So there's just a salesman-y vibe about certain program directors in radio that is so against my personal grain, you know? Anybody who tries to fake the funk irritates me to no end. I am a grounded Chicago girl, be real with me or walk out the door. Like, don't play games.
Right.
And I was always very protective of other people who I thought were having games played with them too. So I think that probably played into where my thought process was. But, I wound up leaving there and, where did I go? I think I went to in LA, V100.
Oh, V100.
With Cliff Winston, we did mornings together.
Okay, that's okay. Yes, because 100.3 has been so many identities.
And I've been through all of them. So 100.3, when it was mega, I was not a part of it. When it was classic rock, I did weekends for them. Cliff and I did urban. So it was kind of interesting how I was able to be there in that same room where I nearly birthed my son, by the way, you know, on Wilshire Boulevard in that lovely tall building. At 3 different stations, 3 different formats. So it's kind of fun. But yeah, so over the years, once I got into mornings, I really dug it. I loved having a team. I love the creativity. I love being able to have ideas like, hey, you know, let's have strippers in the studio for somebody's birthday. You know, hey, you know, what celebs coming in? And in LA, everybody came in. Everybody came in.
Yeah. Yes.
It was fun. And even when we were on Yucca Street, you just didn't know who was coming in the door, you know? Right. And sometimes they would just pull up, like when Rick James got out of prison. Yeah. The guy, DT with Jackson Limousine, he was my driver for a lot of events. And he calls me and he's like, hey, you know, D, it's a Saturday or whatever. I'm by myself. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, I'm just working. He's like, hey, can I come through? And I'm like, sure. And he goes, I got somebody with me. And I'm like, well, who you got with you? And he's like, Rick James. And I'm like, what the hell? I thought he was in prison. He's like, he was, but he's out and he wants to come talk. And I'm like, yeah. So they come and he comes in and we sat there. We talked for 2 hours.
It's amazing how many people would come in and stop by. I tell stories.
Remember the interviews we would have back in the day? You know, to me, one of my favorite interviews of all time was Berry Gordy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I've interviewed everybody from Michael to Janet to Usher, who I love. You know, I mean, I've interviewed so many people over the years, but the reason I had such an affinity for him was because Berry Gordy was the creator of the music that I felt captured my soul as this little white girl in Chicago, stuck out in the suburbs, right? And every Saturday, Soul Train was my like, woo, you know, let's go. And I mean, I get dressed up and everything. So
I can see you.
My mother would be like, I don't know what's wrong with you. And I'm like, the Soul Train. That's what's wrong with me. So I just was like, beautiful. When I had the opportunity to meet him, I was like nervous. And everybody's like, what? Him and Quincy Jones, like these were people that to me were the icons that started this music that has, you know, comforted me, fueled me, allowed me to have success in a career. I mean, these people were the heads of this. So we had the opportunity to sit with Berry Gordy, and he had a book that had come out, and we were able to talk for like an hour and a half and take calls and, hey, let's play a Smokey Robinson song. Let's play a Marvin Gaye song, you know, and it just, you know, the years being in urban radio and hip hop afforded me such a incredible lifestyle, not to mention the ability to connect with people who were history changers.
And then you do mornings at Hot 92.3.
Yep.
And how long are you there? You actually were there for quite a while.
I was in San Francisco, I think. And I remember I got a call. I don't know if I was in San Francisco. I may have actually, hold on, let me think where I was. Oh yeah, I was in San Francisco. And I got a call from Michelle Santasuoso, who was our music director, assistant PD at the time. Then she became PD at Hot 92 Jams. And she said, I want to do a female morning show. You know, they've never had this in LA. Let's just do women on the air. I was like, sweet. So she put Michelle Visage and I together. Misha and I
that's right. Yes.
And Misha and I are good friends to this day. I'm so thankful because, I mean, she was my opposite. Like she was kind of we just bounced really well together. She's so damn funny. Anyways, they put us together, but we were not supported. It was like, you know, Roy McLaughlin basically was like, you know what, Michelle, sure, go ahead and do this, meaning Michelle Santasuoso. Mm-hmm. But the company didn't give us any marketing, nothing. Right? We got nothing. It was just be on your own. It just became kind of a thing where we tried so hard and we wanted so bad for it to work. And then they said, you really need a guy on the show. So they auditioned various men who would come in and sit with us. One man showed his private parts to me, which was like, this is not that kind of an audition. Like, are you kidding me? You know, and I'm one of those people that my work is my work and my play is my play. And please don't, you know, you're not going to wow me with.
Don't confuse the two.
Please don't put your penis out. You know, put it back. And so it just was crazy, the people that were trying to put with us. Yeah. And it was funny because I'm getting my segment ready. I think I was doing some entertainment news or something. And he goes, hey, D. And I turn around and he's got his schlong sitting there. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I turn back like, what the hell? And I hear him go, I bet you haven't made something like that before. He's like, I bet you never saw nothing like this before. And I'm like, all right, stop right there. You want to bother me? I'm going to clown your ass. I was really angry because I'm like, who does that? You know, like who really does that? Wow. And I just, at that point, I was like, you know, why are we doing this? Like, just leave Michelle and I alone. We're enjoying it. Promote us, for God's sake. You promote everybody else on the air. So at that time, you know, we were in that hallway on, what is it, Olive in Burbank. So it was Michelle and I. Right. And then we had Ryan Seacrest, and we had Danny Bonaducci, and then we had Mark and Kim. And then I think Bill Handel for KFI was on the floor below us on the 4th floor. And so all these people had these studios that came along here. And I guess Mario Lopez had been in contact quite a bit with Roy Laughlin about wanting to work and, you know, get into radio. And Mario's one of these guys, man, where he'll take every gig he gets. I mean, it's crazy how hard this guy works. And so they brought in Mario with us, and it just was too many. You know, it was just not the same energy. It was just different chemistry. And then they said, okay, well, we're just going to have Mario. And so it was like, well, Mario, which girl do you want to pick? And Mario's like, what a horrible situation to put me in. And I was like, this is terrible. How do you do this? You know, Michelle wound up leaving. Sometimes when things happen, we're like, oh my God, how could this happen? You know, what horrible timing, and how am I going to survive this? And then years later, you look back and you go, wow, I get it. I totally get it. So Mario and I stuck around for about a year together. And then he was gone. And then they brought in Rico for me to work with, who was a guy I'd worked with in San Francisco for a while. He has a syndicated show called Carmen's. Carmen is the character, and he does different things. And now he's doing syndication. And then I got let go. And, you know, it was difficult for me because it was so unexpected. At that time, I was starting to understand, get rid of the personalities, put the people in who will just say what we need them to say, do what we need them to do. Don't get too creative. Don't talk too long. You know, we're not doing any more of these long interviews. Everything was snip, 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 snip. So it lost its creativity. Sure. And for me, that's why I loved it, because we had that flexibility and creativity. Listeners could call in. It was live. It was real. We didn't edit their crap all the time. You know,
right. It was live. It was local, and radio was starting to move away from that.
Yeah. So I got into not syndicating, but I was, you know, doing my shows from voice tracking for, I think I was in Denver for a while. I was in Salt Lake City. And so I started doing that. I worked at, I think just over the, you know, different stations that I would work at, did afternoons for a little bit in San Francisco. But I think for me, that was when I realized radio was just not going to be probably what I thought it would be. I did have an opportunity to go to Chicago at one point and do mornings. And I literally moved there and was looking for a home. And then all of a sudden didn't get any calls back. And this was the station that was my last radio station. And I'm like, oh shit, what just happened? Well, we decided to hire a celebrity. And I'm like, wait, what? I grew up here. I know this music. Like, wait a minute, what? And they hired a guy who was from the show Yo MTV Raps in the 80s.
So did they initially hire you, and then?
Well, basically, I went in. I I had meetings, everything went great. They're like, A+, we love you, we're ready to move forward. And then there was crickets. So I'm like, what is going on here? And they're like, hey, yeah, we just decided to go with this celebrity. Well, to me, a celebrity is a celebrity, right? So I'm trying to think, who did they hire? So they wound up bringing in, what's his name? Remember Dre and Ed Lover from Yo MTV Raps? I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, they're like, but you can do fill-in if you want. And I went, oh my God, like, really? Really? Are you kidding me? And I said, no, I will not do fill-in. And then they called me again and said, well, our midday girl isn't going to be coming until November from Miami. So we'll have you do middays. And I thought, I needed the money at the time. And I thought, okay, I'll do middays. So that wound up being about a 2-year gig because Miami girl was like, hell no, I'm not moving to Chicago. So it was a 2-year gig. And then when COVID hit, and that's when they said, we're making, cutbacks or whatever, but I was the only one to get let go. So I thought, well, that's interesting. I'm the only female on the air. I've probably got more experience than anybody else, and I had the highest ratings at middays. So that tells you where everybody else was. But they still let me go. So I thought, you know what? It's time for me to move. It's time for me to I can't live with that kind of energy. I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I got my insurance license, which I'd already had. I got my insurance license probably about 6 years ago. And I had met through my best friend, another person who had her own insurance business with her husband. And she told me they were having a hard time finding good people, stable people that would, smart enough that could do the job and stick around. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it a try. So I moved from LA back up to the Marin County, Bay Area. And I started working for them. And now I'm the COO of their company. So I literally live the life every day of a COO. I've got a team of 15. Some are in the office, a few of them are remote. And we basically manage commercial properties for people, their insurance. So if you buy an apartment building in San Francisco, we insure it.
Very impressive.
But I still do the voiceover, right? So you'll hear.
Yeah, you still
I'll do Spotify for them. I do KGO in San Francisco, a lot of their voice work, because I can do it from home, as you know. You put together a little studio and I can do it from home, and I can do it, I have a 24-hour turnaround time. I still do commercials for different clients around the country when they need it.
Right.
And I enjoy that. That is my real creative outlet,
Yes.
And so I still do that, and I hope to do that for a long time to come.
Of course. Well, you will. I mean, you're so good at what you do. And talk about so much that you've accomplished.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely, it's funny because I said to my dad, because he would always say to me, don't do that radio thing. You got your college degree. You're smarter than that. And I'm like,
it's true.
Dad, it's so much fun. And it pays so much money.
It does. And it is so much fun. And there was a point, in an interview that I just did before you with Brian Roberts, he said it was like going to Disneyland every day. And it was. There was a point, that you and I were a part of radio where it was like going to Disneyland every day. It was fun. You enjoyed going. You enjoyed going to work.
Yeah, loved it. And the perks were amazing. We had limo drivers. I had my own security. I had vacations paid for. Hey, we want to put you on a boat with your kids.
Right.
First Disney boat. And I was like, okay.
The
and
perks.
Broadcasting. You just, just being able to get, concerts. I don't go to concerts anymore because I can't be in the back.
Right. I don't go to concerts anymore because I don't go for free.
My kids are like, it's only $300. I'm like, for what? Well, the seats are up here. I'm like, oh, hell no.
Yeah, it's so true. But we had a great time. How you got, real quick before we wrap this up?
Yeah.
how you got to be the announcer on the Arsenio Hall show, because I
Oh,
thought that was great. I wish
well,
I wish it would have run a little longer.
yeah, yeah, me
Um,
too. Me too.
I didn't think they gave it a chance because
Right.
everything seems to be instantaneous now. If
It
it
is.
doesn't work instantly, well, that's it. You're done. In the
Yeah,
old days, they gave things time,
yeah. They just,
but
no,
I
they don't.
thought I thought you did a great job, and
Well, and
I
then came,
watched just to hear you,
oh, you're so
and
sweet.
and how did that come about?
Well, back in the 90s, when people would kind of wander in on Yucca Street, Arsenio Hall, I had come by and he and I became really good friends. And you talk about, oh my gosh, such a big heart. He is one of the kindest celebrities I've ever met,
Mhm.
not to mention one of the smartest and funniest. I mean, you and I laugh all the time. Oh my God, if you and I and Arsenio were together, we'd be peeing ourselves. I mean, he
Yeah,
doesn't, he's so quick,
yeah.
and I feel like, oh my God. So we became good friends and then, stayed in touch. And he said to me, hey, Dee, I'm going to do the show again. I really want you as my announcer. They're trying to push for somebody else, but I really want you to do it. And so I came in and I did the audition stuff with him and we knocked everything out. And then we did the show. And I was really sad when it ended because it kind of introduced me to another part of broadcasting and, just being on the set at Paramount Studios. Judge Judy's next to us. So, hey, Judy, I'd always see her every day. It gave me, that was such a blessing. And it came at such a time in my life where I really needed that financially as well as spiritually to be a part of such a cool thing. Everybody that worked on that show, so nice, so cool. But Arsenio was just such a good guy. And, he always liked to push the boundaries. And they just didn't want to give him, I think, the creative freedom that he should have had.
Yeah,
Because he is so smart. I mean, he really is. And so,
I
yeah,
kind of felt
unfortunately,
that too. You
yeah,
almost felt that they
yeah.
weren't going to allow him the creative freedom that he once had.
Yeah, and I felt like he didn't get the same attention that other talk shows did in terms of publicity and marketing and all that fun stuff. And then here we are, right? How many years later, at a time where, race is such an issue and they so need a voice like him on late night television to be the person to explain to folks what it's like to be Black in this world and somebody who people of all races relate to. Like, to me, I don't know why he's not on a late night show right now, outside of maybe he's been offered it and he said no. But he, to me, would be the perfect person to have deal and talk to people. He brings anybody on his show. He can talk to anyone. Why wouldn't anybody have snatched it up and said, Arsenio, we need you back on right now?
I thought you did a great job.
Thank you.
And I thank you for being on Radio Memories. I hope you
Yeah,
have.
anytime.
I
I'm
hope you
so,
have.
I'm so thankful for you doing this. I'm thankful, and I hope God blesses you with good health, and you continue to feel strong and healthy, and so you can keep doing this. And a lot of these things have fallen off the map, and a lot of people wonder, where is so and so? What are they doing? Like, what was it like back in the 90s, the 2000s, doing radio? And you doing this really, it's awesome. I just think it's so great. And I so appreciate you letting me be part of it.
No, I appreciate those kind words. And I thank you for participating because you were such a big part of not only Southern California, but Northern California radio and of course, beyond. And I can't thank you enough for being a part of this. I hope you have beautiful holidays and a happy new year. And you always have an open invitation to come back. And Diana, take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.
Such a beautiful spirit and such a beautiful soul, Diana Steele. And I hope we get together again here on Radio Memories and talk a little bit more about your career. And certainly happy holidays, happy New Year to you, my dearest friend. And coming up next week, as we wrap up Radio Memories for December, until we come back in January, it's a jock meeting. It's going to be fun. And more information coming up this week. But it's going to be a lot of fun with a lot of old friends. We're going to have a big group of people. And I hope you tune in for some great Radio Memories.
Check out past interviews on the Radio Memories YouTube channel and on Spotify. Click the links. This is Maggie McKay for Radio Memories, a Dave Schuyler production.
Radio Memories.